I see the show now. I have a script. It says here I'm supposed to run away. Okay. He hears
this makes me look like a complete asshole.
Yeah, what the hell? Was I really this bad? Hey, Internet. It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about Lovecraft Country, Season 1, Episode 7, I Am. We open our episode with Hippolyta figuring out how to use the orrery. We also see a flashback 3 days earlier. She is sifting through the wreckage of the Braithwaite Lodge in Artem, and she realizes that George was in fact there. Hence, there's more to his death than she's being told. So she figures out how it opens, and we see this inscription. The inscription is, "Every beginning is in time, and every limit of extension in space," which I looked up, and it is actually part of a larger quote. It is the philosopher Immanuel Kant, who I just know him as the categorical imperative guy that in college. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I know him about. But he also did this quote. So I will read you the entire quote, which is confusing for completeness. This would be if the guy who was chiseling in the orrery had chiseled the entire quote. "Every beginning is in time, and every limit of extension in space. Space and time, however, exist in the world of sense only. Hence, phenomena are only limited in the world conditionally. The world itself, however, is limited neither conditionally nor unconditionally." Bum, 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 bum. So it's kind of saying, I think, the idea that our senses, time and space, are sensory things, whereas the world itself is kind of outside of that perception. And so it's how we perceive things. We can see other worlds. Anyway, so there you go. She's quoting a philosopher, or whoever created the orrery, which is probably that guy Hiram Epstein. We don't know who made the orrery necessarily, but somebody made the orrery. She's now cracked the code. Interesting, though, it's a key, right? It's a key with coordinates. Yes. So I was like, oh, could a crowbar have done as well? It's like hours of equations. Be like, hey, how about this? All right, there we got the key. Where do we go next? That's going to lead her to Mayfield, Kansas, to basically an observatory. But we'll get to that. Okay, we end with Atticus in Mayfield, kind of returning from his own off-screen journey. We don't know where he went during this journey. Maybe he was saving Montrose with a baseball bat. I'm just clinging to that idea the whole time. Anyway, all right. He returns from some journey he took, which resulted in him getting a copy of Lovecraft Country.
Yes.
So wherever he went, he's like, it's kind of like a meta thing where he's like,
yes.
I see the show now. I have a script. It says here I'm supposed to run away. Okay. He hears cops.
This makes me look like a complete asshole.
Yeah, what the hell? Was I really this bad? When I read it, and it really comes across.
Yeah.
He hears cops coming. Hippolyta had killed a cop earlier, and so he looks around for Hippolyta, can't see her, takes off. Leaves, unfortunately, a copy of the comic with Dee's name on it in the blood of the cop. Not the best way to leave evidence there. Anyway, we do see in the trailer for next week as well that Dee does seem to be in trouble with Lancaster, evil Lodge Master cop guy. What do we think? So Hippolyta also was returning from her journey, but we don't see that. I assume she's going to end up in Chicago? Like maybe that's,
I presume that she's going to end up back in Chicago. It's not like she took her daughter with her, right? So.
Right, I'm just thinking, Atticus left Mayfield, returned to Mayfield.
Right.
She left Mayfield, and I think the implication was he's going to oh, Hippolyta, let's get out of here. But she's not there. So maybe they were like, you know what, we'll save you the trip. Atticus is there, he can drive the car back. So here, just go to Chicago. She makes this choice after having lived these various lifetimes. A la Picard in that episode, and I always forget the name of it.
Yeah, I don't know the name of it. No.
Okay. There's an episode where Picard learns to play the flute, and he lives a whole lifetime. And then he comes back, but he's transformed because he remembers all of this previous life he had. I think that's what we're going to see here with Hippolyta. She's lived in Paris for a long time. She, trained as a warrior queen. She's been a discoverer in different worlds. So I think she's going to take that knowledge. So she is now experienced person that she was not before.
That was season 5, episode 25. The Inner Light.
The Inner Light. There we go.
Thank you, Internet. I believe he plays the Ressican flute. If I remember correctly.
Obviously, it's mostly a Hippolyta episode.
Yeah.
Do you want to cover the non-Hippolyta stuff first and then come back around?
Because that doesn't really amount to...
So the things that are non-Hippolyta in this episode, we see Atticus sees Montrose with Sammy and kind of freaks out.
Yes. Yeah, and I thought it was kind of interesting how he, because they want to make it clear, I think, that it's not necessarily he's against homosexuals. It's just that there was a tone to the type of things that his father was beating him about. Sort of like, oh, don't be soft, basically. Right. So I think he was responding to the hypocritical nature of that. Like maybe his hang-ups are what was leading him to beat up his son. Well, also, or at least, I guess, in kind to how his father the reason why his father was beating him is the reason why he's beating his son. But, There's
still this thing, and I think it's underneath Montrose's reactions to Atticus, and also earlier in the season, Hippolyta's interactions with Atticus. He's not Montrose's son.
Right.
And Hippolyta's husband is Atticus's dad. And I feel like that, while everybody seems to know it, or actually Atticus probably doesn't. But the older generation knows it, and they just haven't addressed it.
You're suggesting that that's the reason why he's beating him? Because
part of it, like he's a reminder of all the secrets he had to hold through his life.
I guess.
Maybe? No? All right.
I mean...
You're right. They said the history of violence episode, the idea being that, I was beaten, hence I pass that on to my kid.
Yes.
And so that's...
I think that's the major theme.
Okay.
The fact that he might be like, you're not mine. But keeping it to himself. You don't know why I'm beating you right now. I'm too ashamed to tell you that I'm mad that you're not mine. But trust me, you're mine.
There's a really good reason why I'm beating you right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Good point. So this is interesting also because there's a strong implication that Letty is pregnant.
Yes.
And so... She, I think in this moment, because she's witnessing Atticus freak out,
yes,
I think she's thinking that history of violence as well. Like, this is going to be the dad of my kid. Oh. And how, I feel like there was a little bit of that going on where she's like, do I want out of control guy who's, who's starting to be like his dad to be the dad of my kid? I don't know. Anyway, I think there'll be a little reconciling moment there where Atticus has to do I'm not that guy. Trust, okay, I am, but I'm not. I think there'll be some moment of that. But yes, we had theorized earlier in the season that probably there's going to be a Atticus's kid.
I mean, certainly, it should have been a relief is after Atticus discovers that about his father, he doesn't beat him yet again.
Right, good.
I'm going to hit you
yes,
in that other eye now.
Yes. I mean, we've already, last episode, we got to see some pretty terrible things that Atticus did.
Yes. That's true.
You keep turning that dial. You're like, do we want this guy to win? I don't know. And interestingly, there is another little, kind of almost like a throwaway line. Christina's talking to Ruby.
Yes.
So they're kind of having their little thing of like, oh, you were William. Oh, look, William's down here in the cellar. But, Christina says something about how like, oh yeah, your family's really important to Ruby. And so that made me think, are the, Baptistes, are they particularly important or something? My interpretation of Christina's line is now that Letty's pregnant and is going to have a Braithwaite, right, that whole family is now connected to this Braithwaite.
Oh, okay.
But I could be wrong. Anyway, it was just an interesting, I was like, are we about to get some kind of revelation that, actually all these families are connected?
Right. No, I wouldn't. I'd be surprised if it was that. When I saw it, I just interpreted it to mean, when things are going to happen to your sister, and she's involved with these other people, that would affect you. Is how I read that, but she may have been anticipating something deeper.
So she's got corpses in the basement, and she's draining them of their fluids and creating.
Oh, right. Yes.
So she can't just turn into anybody.
Right.
It's like she can't just turn into Atticus or something. She's got to have the body, take their fluids, and then become.
Oh, and I didn't put together because you had pointed it out, and I didn't recognize her because she's so much cleaner in this dress when Ruby's walking around in her skin than she was walking around in overalls.
Yep.
But they killed her.
Yep. I guess that shovel. Caught the spine.
I was like, if it hadn't been for that, I wonder what she would have used. She's just like, this might come in handy.
Right. We just take this along, throw it in the trunk.
Yeah.
Ruby and Letty reconcile.
Yes.
And that's kind of a big moment there for the storyline. Atticus hears about a possible connection to this. They're trying to figure out what book Hannah had. Right. They think it might be the Book of Names. Right. They're probably right. And so they're trying to think if she had it, maybe she's passed it down. They find a friend of the family that survived the Tulsa riots. Atticus goes and talks to this woman, finds out about a birthmark that he's got. He finds all these connections. So they're on their way to find that Book of Names. Eventually, instead of finding pages from it, they're going to be like, I got the whole book. So that book is going to be MacGuffin very soon. It was interesting when they talked about Mayfield, Kansas, which I think is actually from the book perhaps, but it also made me think of, I lived in Kansas for a while, and I was like, oh yeah, there's this Clyde Tombaugh was this guy who named a whole bunch of celestial bodies, including Pluto. Oh. He lived in Kansas. So I was like, oh, is that Mayfield? It's not Mayfield. It's close. Yeah. It's nearby. He grew up in Burdett, Kansas, so it's near there. But I didn't know if there was some kind of relation to an observatory in the middle of Kansas. Anyway. Also, there's that thing where we found out earlier that Hippolyta named a comet, but didn't get credit for it. Right. Because they wanted to give credit to a white girl. And so Hera's chariot was not, anyway. So that's also kind of introduction to her. It's like she is into astronomy. Yes. So it doesn't just come out of nowhere that she's like, hey, wait, I think the angle of this planet. Kills cop, gets sucked into this portal. Yes. It's taken off to this very bizarre world. We're not sure. She's not sure. We're not sure how this is all going to go forward. Once she starts declaring who she is, this I am idea, she is able to go into a world where that person exists. So her first thing is I want to be singing in Paris with Josephine Baker. Boom. Yeah. Fine. There you go.
And she's there for a while.
She is. It's not just a day. She's there for maybe months.
Until she discovers, I guess, another facet of herself.
Much like the inner light.
Take up the flute? Nah, I'd rather fight a bunch of people.
Yeah. She has a very fiery monologue in that Josephine Baker time where she's basically there are times I just I'm angry. I want to kill white people, but I also hate myself for making them make me feel small. And it's in that anger that channels itself into the next life she lives. Because again, it's not just a day. She trains for a while with the sword.
Quite some time, actually.
And so that's her next life. So she's now gotten very good at combat as well. I have a feeling, as I say, when she comes back, now that she's back in Chicago with all these different life experiences, she's going to be... she's basically the Matrix.
Out of the way.
Now I know Kung Fu.
Yes, yes.
She kills a bunch of Confederate soldiers. After this, I think she then says that she is George's wife.
Yes, so then she goes back to George and,
And this is picking up from one of the first scenes in the series.
Yeah.
So she's kind of revisiting that moment. But in this time, she's much more frank with him about I kind of blame you as much as anything else for holding me in, keeping me small. and he apologized.
Yeah, thankfully he's so put together as a person. It's really a shame that he couldn't have raised Tick, because it's just like, oh wow, this is really the basis of our marriage. Well, you're right, I was wrong.
Yeah, you're right. If only Tick could have had the well-adjusted guy who's very literate. So she has that kind of reconciling moment with George. And then she says, I'm a discoverer. And then she goes to this distant world where she's cataloging different life forms.
With the first episode of the series, we saw Tick sort of exploring all these different sci-fi concepts and everything. But that's not particularly Lovecraftian, that world that she's on?
Not particularly.
Okay.
I do have a quote, which we'll get to in a second here, that's somewhat related to the concept, but one reason it's not is because that world doesn't seem threatening.
Oh. You're right.
Oh, look at this!
Yeah, ooh,
these aliens I just met won't hurt me. All right, I'll just talk to them and write things down. No.
Certainly. A lot of this is very Afro-futurist. So a lot of different themes there. The woman with her incredibly large afro.
Very large afro. No, I do remember one, because, sci-fi wasn't necessarily H.P. Lovecraft's thing as much as, but he did have a couple. And I remember one sci-fi story was distant planet, astronaut shows up, alien culture, and he ends up getting trapped in an invisible maze. And like he can feel the walls, but he can't mark them.
Is it some sort of experiment?
Well, it's some kind of weird, like they've trapped him and they're standing around the invisible maze watching him die. Basically.
Yeah.
And so over time he starves to death, and he ends up starving to death right at the edge of the maze where he could have, he almost found his way out, but he didn't, and he died. That's H.P. Lovecraft. So that's not what happened.
No, did not happen.
Did not happen.
No.
So she meets back up with I think there were credits called her Seraphina, but this goddess woman, and she says, "Oh, how can I even contain all the things I am now in this small body?" And she's given the opportunity of like, "Look, you can stay here in these many worlds, or you can go back." And she's like, "Well, Dee needs me." Basically, she's going back for her daughter.
Yeah, which reminded me of one of the criticisms of Deep Space Nine.
Oh yeah.
When Cisco ascends to be one of the founders, basically, but he just leaves little Jake behind.
I was gonna mention similarly Steven Spielberg. I saw him interviewed about Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh right.
And he was asked, like, would you make, now that you're an older guy and
with a father now,
right? Would you have made any different choices in how that thing went on? He goes, well, yes. I probably wouldn't have had Richard Dreyfuss just walk off and say, "Yay, goodbye, family." So it's like at the time it seemed like the greatest thing. Like, of course, I want to go learn from these aliens. So yes, I would. And it didn't even occur to him that, oh yeah, you just left your family behind. So she does it.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, he would not act as crazy now with his family.
That's right. I don't have to do the potato thing.
Because if you're gonna go.
That's right, be crazy first.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, it's probably for the best.
Yeah.
We'll miss you, Richard.
Yeah.
Yes. So she makes a more enlightened choice, apparently, than Cisco and Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah. There you go. She is a mother.
She's a mother. So she comes back for Dee, who is obviously going to be in trouble next episode.
Yes.
So she's going to have to be there fast for her.
Yes, exactly.
With her warrior skills.
Yeah.
Or
dancing.
Or dancing skills. Those can come in handy too. That was an interesting comparison too, which she's like, seeing
Josephine Baker.
Seeing what my experience could have been like.
Yes.
In Europe,
in Paris,
what saying, versus
that's where Josephine Baker went. She was in Paris because they were like, wow, they aren't nearly as racist over here as they are in the U.S. I'm going to stay over here.
Right. She's feeling very empowered in this moment, and it'd be interesting to see. She's obviously a changed person, And so going forward, her character is going to be significantly different. All right, here's your quote.
Oh, all right.
This is where Lovecraft, somewhat similar to this. This is from a short story called From Beyond. And I picked it because it's similar in that there's a scientist who has this machine, and the machine allows you to perceive all these different worlds. And things from those worlds can come across and see you, and you can see them. And so being seen and not seen actually ends up being a bad thing.
Oh.
And everybody dies. But this is where he's discussing how cool this would be if this machine works. Okay. Crazy scientist. All right. What do we know, he had said, of the world and the universe about us? Our means of receiving impressions are absurdly few, and our notions of surrounding objects infinitely narrow. With 5 feeble senses, we pretend to comprehend the boundlessly complex cosmos. Yet other beings with a wider, stronger, or different range of senses might not only see very different things than we see, but might see and study whole worlds of matter, energy, and life which lie close at hand. I have always believed that such strange, inaccessible worlds exist at our very elbows. And now I believe I have found a way to break down the barriers. Within 24 hours, that machine near the table will generate waves acting on unrecognized sense organs that exist in us as atrophied or rudimentary vestiges. Those waves will open up to us many vistas unknown to man, and several unknown to anything we consider organic life. We shall see things which no breathing creature has yet seen. We shall overleap time, space, and dimensions, and without bodily motion, peer to the bottom of creation.
Okay.
Bum, 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 bum. Turn the machine on. Oh no, we're all dead. Okay. So, there you go. So that is our coverage of this episode.
Yes.
As we say, Dee's in trouble next time. The Book of Names they're hot on the trail of it.
Yes.
So we're 3 episodes left, so we're coming into the station.
I feel more confident that they'll have a resolution than the other show that we're watching.
The Boys has a lot going on and fewer episodes to resolve it.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're in.
Yeah. But that's also the difference between a comic book and a book.
So we'll be back talking about The Boys. We'll be talking about Lovecraft Country. Come on back. Thank you so much, Paul, as always. Thanks, everybody. Bye.